wanted this camera ever since I was like I want to say like in my junior year of college or sophomore year of college. I wanted this camera so bad. I've always wanted it. The only problem was that I just couldn't afford it because this camera runs you anywhere from like $500 to like $2,000. So today I wanted to talk a little bit more about this camera, why I love it and why I hate it, and do I recommend it. Let's start off with the things that I don't like. Previously, I made a video about the ergonomics of this camera, and the ergonomics of this camera just suck, to put it quite frankly, because you're bending over and you're looking down here at the viewfinder, right? Right away, when your back starts hurting and you're like bending over to look through this viewfinder to try to get it in focus, your back starts to hurt because you're leaning forward so much. Your body kind of starts to like shake a little bit, right? Especially if you're someone who doesn't work out. So that kind of takes some getting used to. So that's one thing. And then another thing too is that you kind of have to slow down your whole work process, because you can't just go with a DSLR, put it up to your eye and shoot, ba 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 ba. It's not like that, but more different in terms of like you need to compose your shot through this big viewfinder. And then once you want to zoom into your subject, you bring up the magnifying glass to zoom and focus. The only thing is that when you're holding this camera like this, once you start to zoom in and the further you go out, the weight starts to distribute differently. So now the weight is going more towards the front, and now you have to readjust your arm. And if you're so focused on your composition, that can kind of mess with things. So the ergonomics of this camera just aren't great. And I know that this is a studio camera. It's not a camera that you go out and shoot with a lot, but that's just something to consider if you're thinking about getting this camera, just because, I mean, I love it and that's something that I'm willing to work with, but I'm just saying, like, don't expect something that's like super ergonomically like a DSLR that you can just hold it in one hand and that's it, you'll be fine, right? So definitely be aware of that, and that's probably like the only thing I hate about this camera. Now, everything that I love about this camera, the first thing that I love about this camera is the way it makes you feel. It really does make you feel professional. It makes you feel like amazing, and it makes you feel re-inspired to shoot and do more work. The second thing that I like about it is the modularity of it. So you can actually take everything apart, and this is the waist level viewfinder, and they also have an eye level prism, which is super cool too. So let me just show you guys how that looks so you guys can see. So you see it zooms in, but it's not in focus obviously, but basically this is the eye level viewfinder, the waist level viewfinder, and it has this magnifying glass that's triggered by this switch over here. You guys probably can't see it, but yeah, that's that. So, and I love this font right here. I love this. That's the first thing that I like about it, the modularity of it. So you can actually switch all the film back. So if you have multiple films and you just don't want to waste one, then you can just put another one of these and put it back here, and that's it, you know what I'm saying? So you can actually just put it back in. That's another thing that I like about it. I also really do like the way the shutter sounds. So let me play it, let me do it for you guys so you guys can see it, what that sounds like. So you guys can see it. So once you pull this trigger, inside here, this roll is rolling and it's going to the next shot. So that's basically what you're doing every time you're putting the lever down, and then you can just shoot the image. And that's just something that I really like, and I really like the way it sounds, and it's just super like satisfying. It's super satisfying. And then you can also remove the lens, but you can remove the lens on any other camera as well. The quality of these lenses is just amazing because it has no moving glass elements inside. They're able to get higher quality glass. And I'm just gonna show you guys this lens because it's super minty. It's like super brand new, and it just looks so satisfying to look at. Let me see if I can get it in focus. So yeah. This is the 110mm f2.8, and it's mostly a portrait lens, so that's what it's most commonly used for. This is just like such a beautiful lens, and until you have it in your hands, you won't be able to feel how high quality this lens actually is. And it's actually made in Japan. This whole Mamiya RZ67 originates from Japan, and it's a camera from the 1900s. So there's a lot of history in this camera, and it was used a lot on billboards and magazines, and it's truly a professional camera. The story behind this camera goes a lot further than like any other DSLR. The pictures that come out of here are just so beautiful. So highly recommend this camera if you're someone who is into portrait photography, or someone who just wants to take higher quality images and just experiment with film. Definitely, if you have the money to get this camera, purchase it. The thing that I would mostly say is that if you're looking to get a Mamiya RZ67, I would probably go with the Mamiya Pro I, and that's just because it has most of the features that this camera has for a fraction of the price. Don't go with the Mamiya RZ Pro II, Pro IID or Pro II, go with the Pro I, and that's the best bang for your buck. It also has the Velcro zoom system. This is something that like I've never had before, and I think it's super cool because it allows you to get super close to your subject and get an even more shallow depth of field. That's something that's cool, and overall, this camera is just so unique. This has like so you can focus fast, and then this is like a fine adjustment. Then you also have a focus lock over here in case you don't wanna, in case you're like locked into a focus, you can just lock it. So you have your shutter speed over here, and then you have your aperture on the actual lens up here. You guys can see? So let me put this down. Okay, so you change your aperture from up here. So you see? And then you can also choose to purchase the lens hood, which basically prevents light from coming in at certain directions and causing any like unwanted flares or lowering the contrast of the actual photo lens. Whenever light goes into a lens, it actually lowers the contrast of the image. For those reasons, I think that this camera is super beautiful, and I think it's definitely a collectible for me. I don't think I'll ever be selling this camera. Unless I am tight for money, then maybe I'll sell it. That's why I went ahead and purchased this one, and I spent like $1,500 because I know that this is a camera that I'm gonna wanna keep for a very long time. Put this on wrong. Definitely, if you're someone who's looking into getting into portrait photography, definitely consider a medium format film camera. It doesn't necessarily have to be this one, the Mamiya RZ67. It can also be the Pentax 6.7. And it doesn't really matter what camera you go with. If it's a 6.7 camera, even if you get the old RB67, you're still using film. You're not really using a digital sensor. So every film camera in essence is probably about the same. I would go with any 6.7 realistically because you're still gonna be using the same film, same film stock. That's what's really gonna make a difference. And then the only other major real difference would be the glass that you're actually using. Right here, I'm using the 110. So depending on what camera maker you have, they may or may not have, you know, really good glass. So that might be the only difference. But yeah, that was all for photography. That was my photography camera. This is the one that I really love. My most favorite, most cherishing camera for photography. Definitely, if you're looking for photography, get this camera, the Mamiya RZ67. You won't regret it. It's a collectible item.